Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of La Vida Baseball Live. Happy Monday to you all. I'm Julie Alexandria here in San Diego with Jennifer Mercedes in New Jersey and Ozzie Guillen Jr. from Chicago. Happy 3 days left until opening day. This is when it gets really excited, you guys. So exciting because this is the first time in nearly 2 years that we have had April baseball. It is actually the first time since 1968 that every team in the bigs starts their season on the very same day. So most ballparks will, of course, have fans in the stands, which is a very encouraging sight given everything we've been through in the 2020 season. But no matter how you slice it, this particular opening day coming up on Thursday, April 1st, just seems a little more impactful. What do you guys think? Does this one weigh a little heavier for you in a certain way, Jen?
Yeah, for sure. And when we're talking favorite opening day memories, this will probably be one of my favorite because of the year that we had last year. And like you said, it's the first time in like an entire year that we had an opening day in April with fans in the stands and all of that. So yes, this is one that I'm looking forward to.
Ozzie, how do you predict? How do you see this opening day unfolding? And what are some of your favorite opening day memories?
You know what? I think it's something that you cannot take for granted. I took it for granted when I was part of baseball every single day. I know that for sure. I think most opening day special for us is my dad coming back from an injury in 1993, being able to see him play again. I know it was an emotional moment, him managing first day back from the World Series. So big moments. I took it for granted, though. I thought it's something that would happen every year. And now that I was covering the game, last season it wasn't in April. And this year we weren't sure. And next year we don't know. And the year after that, we don't know. We really don't know. So there's no guarantee. So I think that I would take it with a grain of salt and be very happy that we get baseball in April.
Absolutely. And on the show today, along with, of course, our baseball news, we're going to be talking about our predictions as far as the 2021 season goes. So we're going to get to that in just a minute. Personally, my favorite opening day would have to be 2009 at Citi Field, which was the first year that Citi Field hosted an opening day in Queens. It was absolutely magical. And then my second favorite would be in April, I believe it was April 4th of 2016, when it was my first day on camera with the San Diego Padres, which led me on an entire new life trajectory. But it was a wonderful day nonetheless. I have a photo from that day as I was stepping out of my parents' car. They had come down to watch me on opening day. I was so nervous. And why I was wearing an Hermes belt, I don't even know. But it was 2016. Forgive me. Okay, let's get right to our predictions because this is when it gets exciting. I love an even playing field, and that's where we are right now. The championship is anyone's trophy at this point. So if we had to guess, let's get out our crystal balls. Let's pick our picks for the Latino MVP in the AL and the NL. Jen, who you picking?
I'm going with Juan Soto and Jose Ramirez.
Ozzie?
I got Ronald Acuna and Jose Ramirez.
Right on. I'm going with Juan Soto, and I think Jose Abreu can do it again. I think he can repeat from last year. Jen, you and I both picked Juan Soto. I feel like the national media is kind of sleeping on him.
Oh, I think he's ready. I think this is his year as far as that goes. He's been there, right? Like every little step of the way, every year he's almost been there. And I think this is when it all comes full circle for him.
Absolutely. And at the start of last season, COVID was an issue for him. He missed about a month of playing time. So I'm hoping that COVID is not an issue for him or any of the players for that matter. Okay, moving on. American League champion. Who you got, Jen? Who you picking?
I got the Yankees.
Ozzie?
The New York Yankees, if they're not there, it's a huge, huge, huge loss for them.
Same. And what I think is so funny, we all picked the Yankees. I had no idea who you guys were picking for any of these predictions until this morning when I got them. So I think there's something to be said for that. Okay, National League champion. Jen, who you picking?
Dodgers.
Ozzie?
I'm going with the Braves. Acuna being the MVP. I think that they finally get to another World Series.
I got the Braves too. I think Ronald Acuna, you picked him for MVP. I think he's going to be an integral part to that team. World Series champion, of course, the biggest one. Who takes the cake, Jen?
Oh, if the Yankees are in, it's got to be the Yankees.
Ozzie?
I'm going against history. It would be a Yankees-Braves World Series. I was about 14 years old last time that happened, and we lost. So I would go with the Braves winning this time over the Yankees.
Yeah, Okay, well, that is actually my pick for a matchup. I do believe the Braves will make it all the way, and they will go up against the Yankees if they can stay healthy. Health is always an issue when it comes to the Yankees, right? I mean, they took some risks on some pitchers that are coming off of an injury after 3 out of the 5 of their starting rotation departed, so it should be very interesting. I think the offense will gel, and of course, if Giancarlo Stanton can stay healthy, the Yankees are going to take it. My prediction this year, 2021. Oh my goodness. There is so much to look forward to, though. If you had to pick one thing this season that you're most looking forward to seeing, Jen, what would it be?
Gosh, players just playing without COVID. No positive tests. That would be one thing I'm looking forward to. But no, in reality, I do want to see Juan Soto get that MVP. I had the chance to interview him at the end of the week last week and talked about a couple of things, but one of them being, the talk about who's the best player in baseball right now. Is it Mike Trout? Is it Tatis Jr.? Is it Juan Soto? And he said, you know what? He does believe that Mike Trout is the best player in baseball, but if you put him one-on-one, he's going to always choose himself. So.
Oh, I like it. Nothing like some self-confidence. Ozzy, if you had to pick a sleeper team that might be the upset, who would you pick? Who should we all not be sleeping on this season?
I think the Cleveland Indians. I keep saying them. I think that they have a lot of pitching. Those guys just don't have names. And I think that they have the best player probably in the American League who happens to be Latino. No one's counting on them because they lost Lindor. Sometimes not having the best player is better for your team because everybody else has to step up. So no one's talking about them. I think that they're a very dangerous team to be sleeping on.
And Cookie Carrasco. But hopefully they'll be able to, bring it through. Don't sleep on Cleveland. All right, well, that's going to do it for our predictions. Let us know who you think will be the big winners this season if you can make your predictions. All right, well, now it is time for some MLB news. This is quite an interesting story, rather unexpected in my opinion, but the MLBPA is open to discussing possibly moving the 2021 AllStar Game from Atlanta, Georgia, in response to recent voting laws that put restrictions on voting by mail and, quote, gives legislature greater control over elections and how they are run. And this bill directly and disproportionately affects voters of color. Now, we try not to get too political on this show, but there are times when it is inevitable and you cannot avoid the cross-section between sports and politics. Jen, do you think that this has legs, and do you think we will see the All-Star Game moved?
I think it definitely has legs. I think that we saw a lot of things change with players' mindsets last year. We saw players be more open to discussing what is going on not only in politics but just in the world. And I think we will have a more vocal union, advocating for players and for the league to move the game outside of Georgia. And it's not like it hasn't been done before. The NBA did it with North Carolina. So I think we could see this happen this year.
Ozzy, what would the effects be if they did decide to move it? And I'm assuming, I would hope they would move it to Los Angeles, who was supposed to have it in 2020. They've been awarded 2022, but right now SunTrust Park in Atlanta, Georgia is scheduled to be the site of the 2021 All-Star Game. But what sort of the ripple effects should this happen?
I really, if them canceling the All-Star Game there was going to fix something, I'd say go for it. But it's actually going to hurt them more. The All-Star Game brings a lot of money to the city, and Atlanta needs it right now. So by you not having that money come in, you're basically not helping Atlanta. If the All-Star Game was going to be canceled, I would say, okay, do it. Cancel the game. I don't agree with it because then, another city is going to get the value. I've always said this, okay? This is not new to Major League Baseball. In 2011, Ozzy was caught up in a controversy because players were going to Adrian Gonzalez asked for the boycott of the All-Star Game in Arizona. And when Ozzy was asked, he said, I'm not going to the All-Star Game just because I only go to the All-Star Game if I win the World Series. I'm not protesting. And because he was invited as a coach and he said he wasn't going to go. And everyone was like confused. But if the Major League Baseball has the All-Star Game, okay, in Atlanta, I think that the biggest way to impact this is players don't go. Okay? Tim Anderson gets elected. Anyone who has an issue with it, don't go. Say I'm opting out of the All-Star Game because of the protest. Okay, don't put it on the city. Don't put it on the
But
league.
don't you think that could vilify certain players and make them susceptible to public scrutiny?
It's not. Again, it's your decision if it's that big of a deal to you personally. Again, if I knew that this decision, okay, of not having an All-Star game was going to change that law, and there was going to be more of a positive than a negative, I would say go for it. I think that the impact negatively, because there's another 15 cities that want that All-Star game, okay, and there's about 5 that don't have a Major League Baseball team that really want it to show that they can do it. So that's why I think that the All-Star game, them saying we're going to move it from Atlanta to another city, and then you vilify that city if you look at it. So does that mean that Los Angeles doesn't care about voting rights because they're going to host it? So whichever way you look at it is a negative.
So LA, right? LA missed out because of last year, because of everything that happened. I think it should have actually continued to have been in LA because they missed out on last year. One. Number two, I think the idea of putting pressure on the idea is to put pressure on the politicians to then repeal the law. Again, it hasn't even been taken into appeals. Obviously, we know that there's going to be people who bring it to court and challenge this law's constitutionality. So there is that part of it too. I think that this is part of just putting pressure on those politicians. You got to hit them where it hurts. A lot of these politicians already take donations from several teams, probably, most likely. So I think it's if players can do this, if the league gets behind them on this, that's iffy. But I think it's just a way of putting pressure on these politicians to say, hey, you know what? Are we really willing to sacrifice XYZ amount of dollars that we may be getting, not only for the city, but in our pockets? That's where it's going to hurt them.
Absolutely, because any city that gets the honor to host an All-Star game will see an influx into the economy, whether it be tourists and fans coming in to buy tickets, all the way to patronizing local restaurants and filling local hotels and Airbnbs. I mean, there is a whole ecosystem that goes into a city that hosts an All-Star game. To this, I would add, the third biggest location film industry is in Atlanta, Georgia. So I would look to the unions, the Directors Guild, the Screen Actors Guild, to also take a stand and say, we're going to take our productions out of Atlanta, Georgia, if this bill goes through. And you guys are going to lose a whole economy based on that.
You know what hurts me though with that, because Tyler Perry has an entire studio. He has his own Hollywood out in Atlanta. Like, that is his, right?
Yep.
They were the first to film a movie during the pandemic. They filmed Coming to America all in his studio. And like Ozzy said, like that hurts. That severely hurts the African-American community, the minority community in Atlanta, who is part of these studios. So that part is the one that I struggle with, because I know who he employs, and he employs the people of Atlanta, and he employs minority actors and producers and directors and camera crews. So I think that is a difficult situation that Tyler Perry is going to be in, and how does he address it?
Right. No, it's true. And it's highly impactful. I mean, the state of Georgia gave Hollywood incredible tax breaks, and they wanted studio executives to build huge studios, just like Tyler Perry did in Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, they film, I would say 50% of cable TV, of what you see on reality TV, is filmed in Atlanta, Georgia right now. I mean, it is absolutely incredible. So many major motion pictures. But to bring it back to baseball, you're right. I think as far as the All-Star game being one specific event, if they threaten to take it away, hopefully lawmakers will amend this. I mean, this was a bill that was signed into law. To this day, we're in 2021. I don't know how I do know, but I can't wrap my head around how and why this is plausible. But hopefully what we saw with the NBA taking their game out of Charlotte, we can see the same with MLB if it comes to that. All right. Well, as we talk about the fallout of COVID-19 and the missed season, or the season that was or wasn't, depending on how you look at it, of 2020, we're sort of starting to see what the impact is, large or small, as we look at 2020 in our rearview mirror. So there's an article in The Athletic that's all about the trends that we're seeing of the after effects of 2020, the mental, the emotional, and in this case, the lost season and how it affected the minor leagues and the major leagues. And 3 specific categories that they mention: pitcher workloads, the lack of minor league options in April, and of course, the worst one, which is injuries. Of those 3, and sort of as an overview, Jen, what do you see as the most glaring here? What's the biggest takeaway?
Well, yeah, the developmental process, that workload. I think it's important, and we all know, and I think that we can correlate this back to just real life with people, with children in school, and how they've lost an entire year. A lot of kids have excelled, but there has been a large amount of kids who have unfortunately not succeeded in this type of an environment. And I think that that's the same thing that's happening to a lot of these players, the development that they're losing because of just time. They just haven't been given enough time. And we all know how valuable time is, especially in a sport where you're looked at between a certain age group. And when you hit a certain number, that's it, you're a goner, that you're gone, you're old, and we don't want you anymore. But after losing a year, I think that Major League Baseball needs to reevaluate, refocus itself in how it evaluates the players.
Mm-hmm. Ozzy, I know you have 2 family members who are still working in Major League Baseball. How many of these effects have you already seen?
I think it's more of a job situation. I don't think that from a player side. I think that it was actually better for the guys that were in the minor leagues. They got pushed up. The guys that are going to get pushed up.
Well,
we have this scenario, we have this dream, this utopia that every guy in the minor leagues is going to make it to the big leagues. Absolutely not. Every minor league team's constructed for maybe 1 or 2 guys to make it. And the reality is that, and a couple guys are going to sneak themselves into the big leagues. I think last year, the opportunity of having that camp and being up there, a lot of guys got called up that would have never seen the day of light for another 4 years in the big leagues. But I think it was a job situation. I think a lot of teams restructured and moved a lot of jobs. A lot of teams were more conservative on the money situation. I'm going to go on the end. It was really sad. And again, a lot of players were affected by this. Fred McGriff during the strike era. Andres Galarraga ends up with $399. I think that for Albert Pujols, for example, him chasing history, Miguel Cabrera, those are about 500 at-bats you're never going to get back, okay? Because it was a year that, yes, they got paid partially, but for them, it's at-bats. They're going to have to retire without, what could I have done with 500 more at-bats? I think that from that standpoint, it was sad because they can't, Mike Trout might end up now with, another 30 less home runs and not catch a certain, leader, Barry Bonds, for example. But from a workload standpoint, I actually think it helped pitchers. I think that a lot of guys took an extra chance on guys like Jake Arrieta, and that's something I'm looking forward to this season. 162, baby. 162. That's why our game is special, and that's why our game is hard, is because you have to do it day in and day out. And I think that's why a lot of pitchers are going to look better this season than previous years because their arms are rested. They didn't throw that much. They were able to stay healthy. The more you throw, the more tired you get. So I think that if you prepared yourself well, this actually helped out the older crowd for pitchers. So we might see that. That's why we saw a lot of older guys get signed because they didn't have a workload of a whole season beforehand. So it's pros and cons on both sides. But yeah, I think that the effects are going to be more 2 to 3 years on a financial side, to be honest.
Interesting. I mean, but the argument could be made that they lost reps, right?
They did. From a development standpoint, I think that repetition, I think this affects the guy that needs to get better. Okay. In other cases, no, because Fernando Tatis Jr. got signed with 32 at-bats in the big leagues. It's 100 at-bats, 32 hits. Got signed for a 14-year deal. It never happened before. Okay. Nick Madrigal in Chicago, they're saying he's going to be Mr. 3000. The guy that has less than 162 games in the big leagues. So a lot of guys were Trevor Bauer signed for the biggest contract in Major League Baseball history after winning a Cy Young that, oh my God, everyone in the American National League Central in any other year would have won. Worst division, he wins the games, but he gets $40 million. So in the big league level, it helped. I think where it hurt guys was you're that AA guy that was kind of in the middle and you were trying to develop more, especially the American guys, because a lot of the Latino guys got to go back and play winter ball.
Sure.
And stay active, but the guys that weren't picked up. So I think from a younger standpoint, I think the guys that got really, really taken advantage of is that draft class. Okay. That gap, and that's going to be something we're going to see in college and in even going to high school because teams didn't draft you. Even in the international signing, we're seeing kids that are not being taken at 17 now because they missed that class. So if I was a team, I'd go back and get those guys. Like they just were a year behind, but I would sign them still and see, I have a list of like 10 guys from Venezuela that weren't signed because that they missed a year, and half of the teams in MLB said we're not signing internationally. And these kids, had the teams that they were going to go for didn't sign. So I think that that's going to be bigger. The younger guys, we're going to see a middle gap of potentially those guys that never played. And to be honest, we might not see a superstar because let's say you were playing in an area where your baseball season got canceled and your basketball season was happening, or your football season. Now you're not even going to pursue that sport because you went and played another sport and baseball doesn't no longer become your option. So I think it was a bigger impact on the lower levels of development and signing and what you're going to do college level. We're going to have a 6-year senior and stay an extra year, and that affects the whole kind of roster depth chart. Big league wise, I think it kind of helped more than anything.
And that's my point. I think that's who this affects, is that development of those young kids and like that signing, like you said, Ozzy. If you're 17 and you didn't get signed last year because teams weren't signing, I hope teams are looking back on those players that they were going to sign, about to sign, and these kids need a chance. So that's who I'm worried about. It's that group of kids. They're all kids. That's who I'm worried about.
It's also when you're looking at it, when you development wise, a lot of guys got released last year. A lot of guys that maybe would have had 2 or 3 more years in the big leagues, they said, let's just cut them now because they're not even that close. And sometimes I've seen it a lot of times in Major League Baseball, it takes a guy 4 or 5 years to develop, especially Latino guys. Like we've seen that over and over again. So there might have been a couple guys that could have been your next Eduardo Escobar, your next Nelson Cruz, guys that developed later in their career. So that part, I think that a lot of guys got cut, maybe 2-3 years that they wouldn't have without COVID. So that's the part where you're gonna have to see and say, man, did this guy go to Japan or Mexico and now they're really good? Oh, it's because of the COVID situation. They were let go and then they went to another league.
Right. I'm just excited for the books that are going to come out like 10 years from now, titled 2020. I will read anything with 2020 in the title. I'm waiting for the Netflix documentary where they're going to tell us everything that the documentary that explains to us as a society what really happened. And we'll all look back on it with nostalgia.
And say,
I remember when that happened. I remember that.
But you know what, though? People don't realize that the strike year, it affects Hall of Fame voting. Okay. When you don't have a season, it affects numbers. It affects pay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you were a free agent, we talk about the guys that were big time guys, but like Edwin Encarnacion today sits at home. Okay. And I talk about Edwin because he deserves to be talked about. Second best offensive player in the last 10 years in Major League Baseball when it comes to power hitting. And the league not only decides to not go with the National League DH, but they played a shortened season where he takes a time, and everybody knows this analytics wise, that he is going to struggle for a month or two. He always has struggled for a month or two in his whole career, but he's always hit 40 home runs, yet he sits at home. And that's where I think that the shortened season, a lot of guys were taking advantage of that. And they said, you got to come play for free, if at all. So I think that's the ones that I'm going to look at. And I look at that list and say, man, this guy probably had 2 or 3 more years in the big leagues had they not, if there wasn't for that COVID season.
All right. Well, moving on, because we are almost out of time, but we want to throw it over to some social media. Let's check out Hector Santiago. These are the cutest pictures that you will ever need if you need something to pick you up, make you laugh, make you smile. He's got them. The baby pics.
So cute. So cute. Oh, my goodness. And I love this Lion King. Baby needed some sun. So favorite Lion King pose. Then he's got a love for fishing, and he does not need a fishing rod. Look at him there trying to catch a fish. He got it with his hand.
It's impressive, actually. That's very impressive.
And then he's catching a baby too.
I'm having PTSD looking at that photo.
That's a very busy off season.
No, kudos to his wife for allowing him to post that picture too. Like, shout out to you. You are the real MVP, for sure. And then he's got a gym too. He opened up a gym, so good for him. And he's bringing baby along, training with him. That's awesome.
A gym and a green screen. Like, it looks like he's about to set up a camera and like be somewhere else. It literally looks like he's producing like the next Robert Zemeckis film or something. All right. And really fast, just as we close out here, Jose Abreu honoring Eloy Jimenez as news broke that he will be missing this season. And here he is. Oh, Ozzy's laughing. Ozzy, why are you laughing?
Because he's not dead.
No, but he's
not part of the season.
Are they going to put his jersey there? I already said this. I predicted on the Being Gian show. We could do the follow-up. This was the first thing I said that I think people took it serious. I said everyone on the roster should wear a batting glove in their back pocket in honor of Eloy. And they're going to start saying, oh, Eloy's his presence and he's in the clubhouse and he's giving everybody so much joy and all this stuff. I'm going to say it again. Eloy's an idiot for jumping that fence. Now they're not might make the playoffs because he's probably going to miss the whole season. So Abreu, you better drive in 200 runs. But it was nice. It was a nice gesture. I liked it. You know why I liked it, though? Out of everything they could have done, because it was very Jose Abreu. He did it, and he was waiting for the camera or someone to catch it. If they did, they did. If they did not, he didn't care. He didn't put his number on his hat or anything like that. And again, it's a nice thing, but I leave things like Trey Mancini last year had cancer. Like he didn't have a say in that. But if he would have gotten hurt, I would be so much easier if he would have gotten hurt rounding the base, diving, but climbing for the wall, that was not smart.
Does Eloy know where you live?
I'll tell Eloy that to his face. By the way, we've told Eloy that a million times. It's called eye wash, okay? And that's when you need to separate eye wash from playing hard and playing smart. And fans, they're starting to realize that because, again, 162 games, you're only as good as long as you can be on the field for your team. But it was nice for Abreu. But we're going to see a lot of these things a lot more. And it worked out for him. He went deep. If he would have gone 0 for 4, I don't know if he would have repeated it.
Well, I do hope that we see many more of these things because I hope that we get a full season of baseball. That's all we can hope and pray for, even through all of our predictions. We just want to see baseball being played at the end of the day. So thank you so much for joining us. Leave your comments on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. Let us know what you think of the upcoming 2021 season. And we will be with you all day long on opening day, April 1st, on Clubhouse, on Twitter, on Instagram. We will have content being pushed out across all social media platforms. So stay tuned for that. And happy 3 days until opening day, everyone. Thanks for joining us.